Hallo, mijn naam is Anriette Esterhuysen, and I live in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I've been involved with what is now known as the ICT4D movement for a long time, since the mid-1980s. And the way in which I came to ICTs was through the anti-apartheid struggle, where we were living in a situation of very extreme repression and censorship, and finding ways to communicate was very difficult. Telephones were not reliable. You couldn't send letters or information by mail because it was all intercepted. And then through some partners in Europe, mainly in the labor movement, we discovered this technology, email. And we found a way of building small email systems on a computer that you could very easily move. So if the security police came and cut off your phone line, which they often did, you would just take your PC and move it to another phone line and then restart the system. And so for a few years we were able to work with journalists who were based in South Africa, who were trying to get content out, and also with liberation movements who were outside of South Africa and who needed to get their content back. And so for us that was a very powerful application of technology. And then once there was liberation in South Africa, I got more involved in using ICTs for development, but still very much with a social justice component, because in my belief is that sustainable development can only happen if there's human rights, if people are empowered, if they can speak freely. And for me, that is often what is missing in the ICT4D movement, is not dealing with people as whole human beings. There's a lot of emphasis on uses of ICTs that can empower people economically, but not really looking at people as social beings, as creators, as cultural beings, and also not looking at the rights environment sufficiently. That doesn't mean I don't think that there's a huge amount of potential. And just to tell you a bit about APC, we're a network, and we have 52 members around the world. And what they all have in common is that they are local organizations. They work within their own countries, sometimes just within their own towns. We have a lot of common values. We're committed to open source, we're committed to sharing, but we also believe in diversity. So some APC members would work in media, some would work in gender justice, some would work in agriculture. And what we do as a network is to learn from one another and to do policy advocacy together. So we come together when it is useful for people to come together, but it also gives us a sense of community. And I think the continuity of APC, because it was established in 1990, is that it gives us a sense of learning of the strengths and the weaknesses of doing social justice work through technology over time. And the reason why we participate in a process like this is to also find ways of sharing some of that learning with other people. I think that there's a tendency in the development sector at the moment to because the private sector is very important, and I don't deny that. I think you can't have, the world is a mixed place, and different people play different roles, and business plays a very important role. But I think there's often a tendency that when the private sector appears to begin to make a contribution, a positive contribution to development, that is then adopted very uncritically. And I think in the mobile industry, because mobile is so powerful and it has so much potential, people in the development sector are not really relating to the mobile industry as businesses that have their own interests, and we'll only get the best value out of them if we not only partner with them but also put pressure on them. So you have to lobby for open standards, for example. They're not going to adopt open standards automatically. You could easily have a few mobile companies come together and agree on sharing standards that are not necessarily open standards. And so we need to be aware of that. And the same thing with pricing. In Europe, mobile has come down a lot. The prices are really quite low. But in parts of the world where people are really poor, where people are paying, in Africa, research indicates that people pay 30% on average of their monthly income on mobile. And that's wrong. If we look at the potential of mobile for development, let's also look at making the industry more just and more responsive to users and consumers.